morning. Did you know that you guys elected a new associate? You didn't. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. I went to school with Marilyn in seminary, and for $20, I will give you some really good stories. Coffee hour. But I'm really grateful for both for inviting me to come and preach for you today. So my parish is really, really small. So I kind of lied to the 8 o'clock and said that my parish was about that big, but really it's even smaller than the 8 o'clock service here. So I'm getting a lot of use out of this sermon because in order to preach to this many people, I'd have to write like 6 or 8 sermons. So I'm really excited about this one. I get big bang for my buck. My parish is this teeny, tiny little place in a rural community. We have about 10,000 people in our city. And for a long time, I, as well as many others, believed that we had one homeless guy. There was one guy. He traveled around town. He looked the way that you imagine a homeless person would look. He was dirty. He smelled bad. He was mean. He was really mean. He was not a nice man. And people in Oregon, you can turn in your cans to get a refund. And so people would collect up cans for him, and he would bat them away. He's been known to throw drinks at people. Like people will get him a drink and he'll throw it at them. Not a nice guy, but he's the homeless guy in Silverton. And we have a couple of porches that are covered. And so he would variously sleep on them, and he'd sleep on them for a while, and then he'd move on. But occasionally he would be sleeping on one of the ones by the main door where we come in. And it was always like a paper, rock, scissors moment when everyone was like, I don't want to go talk to him. I don't want to go talk to him. You know, so it's my job. They pay me for this. So I'd go over and I'd, screw up my courage and I'd say, hi, I'm Shana. I'm the vicar here. The what? I'm the vicar. I'm the priest of this church. The what? I'm the priest. I'm the priest. I'm the priest of this church, right? I'm getting louder and standing straighter. And he goes, what? They let women be ministers? And he'd say it every time. I mean, every time. I was like, really? You don't remember me? So we have this conversation every time. And I'd say, well, yeah, the Episcopal Church has been ordaining women since the 70s. And he'd start pulling up his pants and he'd say, that's ridiculous. It's ruining the church. He'd go off, I later learned from one of my friends that he would, when he went to the warming shelter, he talked about how wonderful my church was because we were the only church that didn't call the police on him. What? He could have been nicer to me to my face. But this is how we understood our community. And in Oregon, the homeless population is increasing. We're having really dramatic, I think there are a lot of places in the world, in the country that are doing this, but the cost of housing has gone up a lot, and so we've got a really increasing housing insecure and unsheltered population. And so, meanwhile, my church is this teeny tiny little church. And for my first probably 7 years at St. Edward's, we were getting ready to die. And we kept moving. We started drawing off our endowment because what's a church with an endowment if you're closed, right? So we started taking off our endowment. We took $3,000 a month, which is a lot for a $5,000 a month budget. We knew. That's a lot of money to be taking out of savings every month. And in 2016, in the middle of the night flash, I thought, we don't have people, we don't have money, but man, we have land and building. What could we do? And I thought, we could put tiny homes out for homeless people. And I went to the annual meeting and I thought, I've got to cast a vision for something, right? I've got to get up there and we've got to rally the troops for something. So this is it. This is what I'm going for. And I thought people would think I was crazy. But they leaned forward and they said, maybe we could. I mean, we do have a lot of land and we're not using it. So we started thinking about it, started talking about it, but none of us are builders and none of us are community organizers and none of that, right? We didn't even know where we were going. So we kind of moved along on that path, and then in 2017, one of my parishioners came in and she said, one of the city councilors, her name is Dana Smith, and she's an atheist, so it's going to be awesome that I named her in church. She calls me her priestess now, so it worked out. But, said, well, I don't know Dana, but Laura, small town, Laura knows Dana, so call Laura. And so I call Laura, and I'm like, hey, do you know? And so she gets me an invitation to this meeting. So I show up, and what I know now is that those women are mostly agnostic or atheist women. So I'm sure when they saw me in my collar, they were like, oh, great. But we go around the room, and we're introducing ourselves. I'm so-and-so, I'm a social worker, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a Thai teacher, whatever it was. It gets to me, and I said, well, I'm Shana, I'm the vicar of St. Edward's, that everyone thinks is closed, but that church. And we've been talking about building tiny houses for homeless people for a while. And the whole room went, and it was the Holy Spirit blowing in, but they're all agnostics, so they didn't know. It came in, and it was there, and from then, I have been working so much and so hard, but more importantly, we have been working so much and so hard. So we changed the law in our town because it was not legal to do what we were trying to do. And almost all of my congregation would show up for the city council meetings, and people didn't realize it was almost all of us. They're like, oh, there's a good turnout from that church. I'm like, yes, everyone. But boy, did we do meetings. We were meeting after meeting, and people in the neighborhood were mad. They're still kind of mad. But we got the law changed in October, we got our conditional use permit in January, and we are breaking ground on Pentecost. So we're almost there. And we're at this place in the cycle. It smells a little bit like this all the whole way, but now it really does, where we've ticked to the top on the roller coaster, right? And we're all strapped in, and I'm breathless, and I'm waiting to shoot down the next side. And I know it's going to be good, and I know it's going to be fun, and I know it's going to be amazing and hard and scary. But I'm a little breathless at this moment because I'm looking down this really big hill and knowing that we've done a lot of planning to get up here, and my little church that is too small with not enough money is doing this really amazing and big thing. So in the meantime, our endowment ran out. We ran out in 2017. And we were planning in May to talk about letting me go in November, right? Give my family some time to figure it out. And we got to May, and we were like, hey, we're doing okay. And so, all right, we'll talk about it again in September. And we get to September, and it's, okay, well, we don't know why, but there's enough money, and we're going to keep going. So in December, we had a $12,000 carryover. And the next year, we made it all the way. In 18, we made it all the way, and here we are in 19. I still have a job, so things are working out okay. It's not. I mean, we don't have like a gold font or anything, but it's working, and somehow we're making a go of it. And for a long time, we told ourselves that we were too small. We're too small. We don't have enough money. We definitely don't have enough people. And for whatever it was, whatever we were asked to do or whatever we thought we might do, the answer was always, but we're too small. And then we started on this thing, and the community was like, you guys are too small. And I don't know if you know Nextdoor. Do y'all know what Nextdoor is? It's a social media platform. It's the devil. So the people get on Nextdoor, and they start talking about those 12 people over the Episcopal Church, and they're going to close up, and they're going to bring all these homeless people to town, and they're still talking. It hasn't changed. But then those folks start saying, you guys are too small. But once they start saying that, it's like, no, we're not. Who are you calling too small, right? In these moments, when we are on a roller coaster, when we are on that way to transition, it's really easy to tell ourselves we are not enough. And if we forget to do it ourselves, others will do it for us sometimes. And there are some of you who are about to graduate. I know this is graduation Sunday. And everybody in your life will be trying to give you advice right now because it has not been put properly into your brain, and we have 28 seconds left, and we're going to get it in there. So this is my 28 seconds for you. This moment is a moment when you've ticked to the top and you're ready to go. And the straps that hold you in, were sent to you by Jesus. Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor. Somebody say, love God.
Love God.
Somebody say, love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor.
All right, two things. It's really easy. Jesus knows that he's on the way out. He says, I'm not going to be with you always. This is it. He's wrapping up his time, and he wants to make sure that people remember. And if you give them too many things to remember, they won't hold them all. We only have so much capacity. When my husband moved out of his mom's house, she gave him a mug that said, call your mother. We still have that mug. We need really little bits, because at that moment, you're carrying enough. And so Jesus says, love God, love your neighbor. Somebody say, love God.
Love God.
Somebody say, love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor.
That's it, these two things, right? So when the world says you're too small, when the world says you're not enough, when you tell yourself, I'm too small and I'm not enough, remember what God said. Love God, love what Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor. There will be people like Mike along your journey. They will be hard to love. The easy people are hopefully your parents and your community, right? Those are the people who are going to be easier to love. But there are going to be these other folks who are there who tell you that your ordination is not good enough or whatever you have, right? That you are somehow too small or not enough. And there are going to be times when you tell yourself those things. And in those moments, the best thing you can do is hold on to the straps. Love God and love your neighbor and put one foot in front of the other. Because when you do those two things, the Spirit will be behind you and will hold you in, even as you drop down the long way on the scary and thrilling ride. May we always know the love of God, the sure thing that God is with us and in us, so that we may recognize the divine in all of the people around us, including ourselves. Amen.